There's an America you've never seen on any map. It existed long before highways carved up the landscape, before cities rose from the earth, before anyone ever drew a border. This America was built from symbols that lived in the wind, spirits that walked through forests, and stories that turned every mountain into a teacher. The people who first called this land home didn't just live on it, they lived with it. Every animal was a messenger, every storm carried meaning, every sunrise was a ceremony. They created the first American mythology, and somehow, against all odds, pieces of it are still alive today. You see traces of it everywhere if you know where to look. That dreamcatcher hanging in someone's window? That's protective magic. The way we talk about Mother Nature. That's ancient wisdom. Even our modern environmental movements are echoing thoughts that were already thousands of years old when the first Europeans arrived. So let's step into this invisible America. Let's discover the symbols and spirits that were here first, and see how they're still shaping us in ways we never realized. If you seek meaning in stories that never die, subscribe. This is Beyond Mythology. Picture this. You're standing on what we now call North America, but in the mythology of over 100 different tribes, you're actually standing on the back of a giant turtle swimming through cosmic waters. This isn't just a creation story. It's a completely different way of seeing reality. Turtle Island, as many tribes call this continent, represents something profound. The turtle doesn't just carry the world, it is the world. Patient, ancient, moving slowly but with purpose. When you understand that indigenous peoples saw themselves as literally living on the back of a sacred being, everything changes. The land isn't property to be owned, it's a living relative to be respected. But here's what's fascinating. This same image appears across cultures that never had contact. Hindus speak of Kurma, the turtle avatar that supports the universe. Ancient Greeks told stories of turtles holding up islands. Norse mythology describes a cosmic turtle swimming in primordial waters. Why do humans keep imagining turtles as world bearers? Maybe because turtles embody something we recognize as essential, the slow, steady foundation that makes everything else possible. The indigenous peoples of North America didn't stop at turtles. They mapped the cosmos in ways that would make Jung proud. Take the world tree, found in Lakota, Cherokee, and dozens of other tribal traditions. This isn't just a big tree. It's a vertical highway connecting the underworld, our world, and the sky realm above. Think about it. Roots reaching into the unconscious depths, trunk growing through our everyday reality, branches stretching toward higher consciousness. Every culture seems to need this vertical axis, this connection between different levels of existence. The Norse had Yggdrasil, the Maya had their Ceiba trees, and here in America, countless tribes recognize the same archetypal pattern. Then there's the four directions, but forget everything you think you know about north, south, east, and west. Indigenous peoples turned the compass into a psychology textbook. East wasn't just where the sun rises, it was the direction of new beginnings, childhood, the color yellow, the season of spring. South meant passion, youth, summer, red. West brought reflection, maturity, autumn, black. North offered wisdom, old age, winter, white. This wasn't primitive thinking. This was sophisticated symbolic mapping. They were saying that external directions mirror internal seasons of the soul. We all have eastern moments of fresh starts, southern periods of intense energy, western times of looking back, northern phases of deep wisdom. The four directions were like having a GPS for the human experience. Now we get to the beings that populated this mythological landscape, and here's where things get really interesting. These weren't just characters in old stories, they were psychological forces given form, inner experiences projected onto the natural world. Take the Wendigo from Algonquian traditions. Most people think of it as some kind of monster story, but look deeper. The Wendigo represents what happens when human beings lose their humanity. It's always hungry, never satisfied, consuming everything around it, but never finding peace. Sound familiar? The Wendigo appears when people become so disconnected from their community, so driven by pure need, that they stop seeing others as human beings. It's cannibalism as metaphor, the moment when we start feeding on each other instead of supporting each other. In a culture that valued sharing and reciprocity above everything else, the Wendigo was their symbol for the ultimate spiritual sickness, the inability to stop taking. Today we might recognize the Wendigo in different forms. The executive who destroys communities for profit, the addiction that consumes relationships, the consumer culture that's literally eating the planet. Same energy, different expression. Then there's Thunderbird, and this one shows up everywhere across North America. Massive wings that create storms, eyes that flash lightning, a voice that shakes mountains. But Thunderbird isn't just about power, it's about transformation. Thunder comes before rain, destruction before renewal. Thunderbird represents the forces that tear down what needs to go so something better can grow. Every culture seems to need this archetype. Greeks had Zeus's eagle, Hindu traditions speak of Garuda, Egyptians revered the falcon. There's something about birds of enormous power that speaks to the part of us that knows sometimes the old world has to crack open before the new one can emerge. But maybe the most misunderstood figure is Kokopelli, that hunchbacked flute player you see on southwestern pottery and tourist t-shirts. People reduce him to a fertility symbol, but that's missing the point entirely. Kokopelli represents the transformative power of joy, music, and celebration. He's the spirit that shows up when communities need to remember how to play, how to create, how to find life force in dark times. Kokopelli is also a trickster, and tricksters serve a crucial function in healthy cultures. They break rules, challenge authority, and remind everyone that taking yourself too seriously is its own kind of spiritual death. The hunchback? That's not a deformity. It's a bundle of seeds he carries to plant new possibilities wherever he goes. Here's where the story takes a crucial turn, because we need to talk about White Buffalo Calf Woman. In Lakota tradition, she's the teacher who brought them the sacred pipe and showed them how to live in right relationship with all of creation. The story goes that she appeared during a time of famine and spiritual confusion, bringing not just tools for survival, but a whole way of understanding the sacred. The pipe she gave them wasn't just for ceremony, it was a technology for connecting heaven and earth, individual and community, human and more than human worlds. What's profound about White Buffalo Calf Woman is that she represents the principle that real spiritual authority comes through service, not domination. She didn't conquer or demand worship, she taught and then transformed into a white buffalo calf, reminding them that the sacred can appear in any form. This mirrors patterns we see worldwide. Kuan Yin bringing compassion to Buddhist cultures, Demeter teaching agriculture to the Greeks, the Virgin of Guadalupe appearing to indigenous peoples in Mexico. There seems to be an archetypal need for the sacred feminine to appear when cultures need guidance toward balance and harmony. The tools and practices White Buffalo Calf Woman represents led to some of the most sophisticated spiritual technologies ever developed. The medicine wheel, for instance, isn't just a circle of stones. It's a multi-dimensional mapping system for understanding how everything connects to everything else. Each stone represents not just a direction but a season, an animal, a plant, a mineral, a stage of life, an emotional state, a spiritual lesson. Walk the wheel, and you're walking through all the different ways of being human. It's like having a mandala you can inhabit, a meditation you can physically experience. The dreamcatcher might be even more ingenious. It's based on the idea that dreams are not random neurological firing, but actual communications from the spirit world, some helpful, some harmful, all needing to be filtered. The web catches the harmful dreams, the hole in the center lets the good ones through. It's spiritual technology designed to protect the most vulnerable state of consciousness. And Vision Quest, the practice of going alone into the wilderness to seek guidance from the spirits, represents something every human culture seems to need, a formal way to transition from one life stage to another. It's not just Native American tradition, it's answering a universal human need for initiation, for the kind of challenge that reveals who you really are when everything familiar is stripped away. But all of these practices and stories emerge from one fundamental understanding that was revolutionary then and is still revolutionary now. The earth is alive. Not metaphorically alive, but actually, literally, consciously alive. Long before James Lovelock proposed the Gaia hypothesis, indigenous peoples of North America were relating to the planet as a living being. Mother Earth wasn't just a poetic phrase, it was a description of reality. The land has consciousness, memory, intention. Rivers are her bloodstream, mountains are her bones, forests are her hair, and we are her children. This changes everything about how you live. You don't mine your mother's bones without permission. You don't pollute your mother's bloodstream for profit. You don't clear-cut your mother's hair just because you can. Every decision has to be considered in terms of how it affects the living being who supports your existence. Indigenous cultures developed what we might call sacred geography, the understanding that certain places hold concentrated spiritual power. These aren't random beliefs, but observations based on centuries of attention. Black Hills, Canyon de Chelly, Mount Shasta, places where the Earth's energy is so palpable that people naturally gather to pray, to heal, to receive guidance. Modern science is starting to catch up. We know now that certain geological formations do generate measurable electromagnetic fields. We know that places with moving water and particular mineral compositions can affect human consciousness. What indigenous peoples felt intuitively, instruments can now detect. And then there are the animal teachers. This isn't the romanticized idea that all animals are gentle and wise. It's the more complex understanding that each species embodies particular qualities that humans can learn from. Wolf teaches about loyalty and pack cooperation. Bear teaches about introspection and seasonal rhythms. Eagle teaches about seeing the big picture from great heights. Snake teaches about transformation and healing. This isn't projection, it's observation. When you pay attention to how different animals actually behave, they do model different approaches to being alive. Indigenous cultures developed sophisticated systems for learning from these non-human teachers, recognizing that humans aren't the only conscious beings on the planet. Here's the part of the story that might surprise you. None of this ever actually went away. Yes, there was systematic suppression, the boarding schools that forbade indigenous children from speaking their languages, the laws that banned traditional ceremonies, the missionaries who declared sacred sites demonic, the government policies designed to kill the Indian and save the man. For over a century, there was a deliberate attempt to erase indigenous ways of knowing. But symbols are stubborn things. They find ways to survive, to adapt, to resurface when the time is right. The 1960s counterculture movement, deeply influenced by indigenous spirituality, the environmental movement that began in the 1970s, built on concepts that indigenous peoples had been living for thousands of years, the holistic health movement, the New Age exploration of consciousness, even modern ecology, all echoing ideas that were already ancient when Columbus arrived. Think about how we talk today. Mother Earth is common language now. Sacred sites is a concept most people understand. The idea that animals have spirits, that dreams carry messages, that plants can be teachers. These aren't fringe beliefs anymore. They're showing up in mainstream psychology, in environmental science, in medical research. Even our technology is catching up to indigenous wisdom. Biomimicry, designing technology based on natural patterns, is essentially what indigenous cultures were doing with their sacred technologies. Network theory, systems thinking, quantum physics concepts about interconnection. Indigenous peoples were living these principles long before we had scientific language for them. And here's what's really remarkable. The symbols are appearing in places you'd never expect. Corporate logos that use sacred geometry, video games that feature shamanic journeys, Hollywood movies that explore animistic relationships with nature. The symbols are finding new vessels, new ways to reach people who might never encounter them in their original contexts. But maybe the most profound legacy is in the growing recognition that the Earth is actually alive, that consciousness isn't limited to human brains, that everything really is connected in ways we're just beginning to understand. Indigenous peoples never stopped knowing this. They just waited for the rest of us to catch up. So here we are, living in an America built on layers of mythology we rarely acknowledge. Underneath every highway, there are still sacred trails. Beneath every city, there are still places where people once gathered to honor the directions, to receive dreams, to learn from animal teachers. The symbols haven't disappeared, they've gone underground waiting. The spirits haven't left, they've adapted, finding new forms, new ways to communicate with human beings who are finally ready to listen again. And maybe that's the real message of Native American mythology. The sacred was never separate from everyday life. It was always here, in the land we walk on, the air we breathe, the dreams we receive. We just forgot how to pay attention. But attention can be remembered. The invisible America is still here, still breathing, still offering its ancient wisdom to anyone willing to slow down enough to receive it. The question isn't whether these symbols and spirits are real. The question is whether we're ready to live in a world where everything is alive, everything has consciousness, and everything has something to teach us. Because that world never went anywhere. It's been waiting right here all along. Have you ever felt one of these symbols speaking to you? A dreamcatcher, an animal spirit, a vision in nature? Tell me in the comments. And if you seek meaning where myth and history meet, like, share, and subscribe. This is Beyond Mythology.